Hello candidates, I am going to dictate you a passage of 800 words which is based on Drdo stenographer. So please get ready for the dictation. The dictation will start after 15 seconds. While presenting the Union Budget 2017-18 on February 1st, 2017, the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley allocated Rs 3,59,854 crore to the Ministry of Defence. As in his previous budget, the Finance Minister also made certain changes in the format of the defense demand for grants under which defense money is distributed among the armed forces and other defense agencies, bringing further complexity to the task of estimating the various heads that make up India's official defense budget. The complexity apart, the bigger question that faces the defense community is whether the latest allocation is adequate to meet the security needs of the country. This issue brief examines the latest defense allocation in the light of its possible impact on modernization and operational preparedness of the defense forces. It, however, begins with a macro survey of Indian economy and the context of the Union Budget, both of which have a direct bearing on defense. Despite a gloomy global economic environment, the Indian economy continues to a bright spot with the initial estimates of the gross domestic product showing a growth of over 7% per annum for 3 consecutive years between 2014-15 and 2016-17. The growth momentum is likely to be sustained at around 6.75 to 7.5% in 2017-18 as projected by the latest economic survey. Besides the GDP growth, the economy has also witnessed other robust macroeconomic indices pertaining to inflation, fiscal consolidation, current account deficit, rupee-dollar exchange rate, foreign exchange reserves, and foreign investment inflows. The impressive macro fundamentals notwithstanding, the Indian economy is widely perceived to be growing at much slower than its growth potential of 8 to 10%. There is a growing concern that the sluggish recovery of world economic and recent anti-globalization tendencies seen in the West could affect India's effort to push for an export-led economic development. Back home, the subdued corporate investment and depressing private final consumption expenditure are major markers of concern which, if left unaddressed, would likely halt the growth momentum. It is in this context that the Union Budget has focused on a government-led investment approach to spur the domestic economy. Investment on infrastructure, rural economy, and the like have been the primary focus of the Union Budget 2017-18. The emphasis on the sectors is such that the government has deviated from its promised fiscal consolidation path to provide extra resources on these fronts. More significantly, the deviation has come even after a hefty 17% growth in the estimated gross tax receipts from the Ministry of Defense point of view. However, the Union Budget 2017-18 is an opportunity as neither the fiscal expansion nor the revenue buoyancy has resulted in a significant hike of resources. Another major feature is the future increase in the share of the revenue expenditure in the total defense budget. The increase is primarily due to the hike in the manpower cost of the armed forces, which accounts for over 83% of the overall growth of Rs 13,291 crore in the defense budget. It is significant to note that the manpower-driven defense budget is not unique to 2017-18. In the last several years, it has been a recurring feature with a debilitating effect on two vital elements of the defense budget: revenue stores and capital modernization, which together play a vital role in the operational preparedness of the armed forces. As figure succinctly illustrates, the combined share of these two elements has declined from 55% in 2007-8 to 40% in 2016-17. This does not augur well, especially when there exists a huge void in India's defense preparedness and the armed forces have grave shortages in many areas, running from ammunition, assault rifles, bulletproof jackets, night fighting devices to howitzers, missiles, helicopters, fighters, and warships. Needless to say, for adequate defense preparedness, the present ratio needs to change for the better, for which allocation under revenue stores and capital modernization needs to be augmented substantially. Among the defense services, the Indian Army, with a budget of Rs 1,49,369 crore, accounts for the biggest share in defense budget, followed by the Air Force, Navy, Defense Research and Development Organization, and Ordnance Factories. The lion's share for the Army is primarily because of its overwhelming numerical superiority over the sister services, accounting for over 85% of the uniformed personnel. Bulk of the Army's budget goes into meeting the pay and allowances of the personnel. In 2017-18, only 17% of Army's total allocation has been embarked for capital expenditure. The comparative figures for the Air Force and Navy are 58% and 51% respectively. Unlike in the previous budget, the Union budget has not provided any specific incentives to push the Make in India initiative in the defense sector, although some industry-wide proposals have been promised. Among others, the government has promised to reduce income tax from present 30% to 25% for micro, small and medium enterprises with an annual turnover of up to Rs 50 crore. This is likely to benefit some 6,000 MSMEs which are presently supplying parts, components and subsystems to players like DRDO, Defense Public Sector Undertakings, OFs and the large private companies.